Morning everyone, welcome to our day trading setup session for today, February 28th, 2022. We had a lot of stuff happen over the weekend, obviously some significant gaps in the openings on most of our futures markets yesterday. Some of those gaps have nearly closed already though, so we'll be taking a look at each one of the markets that had a gap like that. So see what's going to happen when the actual U.S. markets open here in just about 45 minutes from now. First of all, of course, let's check Forex Factory just to see what events we have going on that are scheduled for today. You can see here we got a few things that have already happened at 8:30. Nothing significant though, right? They're all just the yellow folders there. The only thing I think that it's a yellow folder, but it's worth noting is the goods trade balance, right? It keeps going down for the U.S. That could come into play at some point. PMI here at 9:45, orange folder there, and then nothing else big until 10:30 tonight, and that's Australian dollar thing. So for those of you trading Australian dollar and Forex, or maybe even in the futures, go ahead and just make sure that you note that. Let's go ahead and get started into our dollar. So the dollar, of course, had a pretty significant gap up as well. We'll look at that here on the 45-minute chart, since that's one that we actually had a zone drawn on for us. And as you can see, right here, obviously this is a fairly significant gap up, right? We closed out at 96.53 and opened at 97.25, so almost a 75-cent gap there. That came right out of this zone here. You'll see this same situation happen in the Nikkei index as well when we get to that, where we had just a perfect zone. So again, news moves the markets from a speed perspective, but it doesn't actually determine where they're going to change the directions at. So as you can see here, dollar dropped right into very good demand zone, and then jumped right up out of it when it opened the next day. But overall, dollar perspective, we are still going up here. We've got a couple more zones up here at the $99 and $100 area, and it does not look like anything is going to stop it from going there. We've also creating some additional demand zones as well below. Let's see here, anything else jumping out at us? We still have the one zone here on a 180-minute chart. If we get all the way down that far, this is down at 96. And with this gap here, I just wouldn't trade anything in the gap, right? So there's nowhere to get back long on this until you get down below where that gap is at. So just be very, very cautious to trading in those gaps. And again, remember, we are in an uptrend, so you don't really want to be taking any shorts at this point. Jumping over to our VIX. So volatility, of course, obviously had another significant gap up as well. And we are still moving up from the 240-minute area here. Daily chart still shows everything moving up. So we're not looking for shorts here, although we are looking for areas where you could potentially get the top of this move. But honestly, I don't remember where we had our next. It may not be quite a ways away. Up at 56 area is our, we've got to have at the 44, we've got a use zone, but it's not. It was barely touched, so we'll probably, we could very easily get another move back down out of that area right there. So keep going. And again, because we are still moving up, you would be looking, for additional areas of demand below, and with this gap, you have no idea where they're at. So that's just way too risky to try and take anything there. All right, so I'll take a quick look at the Euro USD. It did have, so interesting enough, right? We saw that 45-minute chart on the dollar. Then you had the one here on the so 45-minute area on the euro, and basically what happened was the two areas were not quite lined up, and so where I had my stop for this trade right here, it actually stopped it out. I probably would have paid a little bit more attention to where the dollar was at. I could have had this trade enter more closer to where the dollar was, instead of where the euro was here. So just another note there. Leave this line up so I can monitor it later. But price does seem to be coming right back up, and coming very close to closing this gap out here. Although I wouldn't expect much of this to hold, honestly. So with that being said, anywhere else, we'll look for other places to get short. But again, you've got to go above that area right there, and just wait. Yeah, again, wait till that gap closes, or it creates another zone somewhere below it. But just not seeing anything at all right here. So let's move over to our indexes. We had a couple of these from our Thursday trade, right? And almost all of the ones we had on Thursday, so we had the several of them that had the 180-minute zones, and most of them had a 45-minute zone as well. I think all but one or two of them were break-even trades, and then we had, I think, two of them were losses, and then one of them was a win. So overall, it was a positive day, but it may not feel quite like it because just so many trades and only having one of them win, that can sometimes set you up a bit, so it doesn't feel quite like it's an actual winning day overall. So we did get this pretty significant move up here, and when we get to RTY, we'll reaffirm why this corrective move happened. We are still, just pulling this up on the daily chart here, right? We talked about this line here and having to close below it, and we did not. Right, we still haven't closed below this line, so that's why we just don't have solid indications yet that we're going to keep moving lower here. So this will be, it's really, we're going to have to watch some of the lower time frames now, like 240 and below, to see if we're creating additional demand zones where price is going to keep moving up from here, and this would not be a correction but an actual change of trend and move back up, or if it is, we're going to keep coming back down. So we're just in a little bit of an area of limbo right now. Again, it's an inside day as well, so we just have to be very, very cautious. And again, anytime you have a significant event like what's going on in Ukraine right now, it's just the uncertainty really does show up in the price movements as well. And so we want to make sure that we're looking for very, very strong zones here. We also have this gap, and so we don't want to take any trades in the gap area unless it's recreating, once price movement has moved far enough away from it and you're getting additional zones that's created with there, then you can go ahead and take those. But really, there isn't anything else that's worth even looking at right now. So honestly, from my perspective, unless I start looking on like share bar charts later on in the day, this may be a day where we just don't take any trades at all. So we had the same thing here on the 45-minute for NQ, right? It was that was a break-even trade, and the only thing that I'll point out here on the NQ daily chart is we do have the negative divergence on RSI, pretty significant amount of it, but we did create this zone structure right here, and I put in both zones, but in reality, if you were going to take this as a single trade with the leg out candles being almost identical to each other, you really would be getting in. Just reset this. would be getting in somewhere in this area right here. I'll just make that a red line for a short position. So it wouldn't surprise me if price came up into this area. You can also see too, right, you've got this nice, downtrend line as well. Let's see just how many of these points it hits right here. So if you're drawing it like this, right, I mean, this would be price come right up into here. I mean, it would be, if it comes up in here today, then that would fit that very, very well as well there. Looking at some other lower time frames, again, you got that pretty significant gap you've got to fill before you start, looking for additional places to get short above there. And again, just because there isn't anything, until you get to that gap, we're just not seeing much. So RTY, so this is why we had the move back up, right, where we had this previously used zone here, but it was one that had barely been touched, so we were looking at it as having additional strength, and sure enough, price came right back down into it. Obviously, we didn't get a close below the purple line either, and now price has just moved straight back up again. Again, we did have negative divergence on RSI here, but in reality, we do still have this zone right here. It's not a strong one. And honestly, you're probably looking at it more like about here. But again, this would not surprise me that this whole channel down would continue to work as well. Since it doesn't meet all of my criteria, I'm not calling it a zone, right? We didn't take out this pivot low over here, but it's an area to watch. And really, if this one holds and keeps going down, then we're going to keep going down with the overall probably weekly trend. If we can potentially get this one to break moving up, then that'll be a really good sign that we are in a potential trend change back up again. And looking for other areas to keep getting short here, again, we've got to get above that gap before we're interested in anything at all. And just don't see anything. So YM, the same thing. We had the 180 and the 45-minute ones here. I think the 180 was the one that was the loss. 45-minute one was another break even. And it's just really interesting when you take a look at each one of these. You look at we had drawn this line and said you needed a candle to close below it in order to prove the move is going down. I mean, just candles are closing right at this line, but they are not closing below it. And so you've just got that really good indication that this corrective action happened and could continue to happen too. We don't have quite as good of this trend line here, right? This would be the one you'd be looking at. So you could potentially get price movement all the way up in here. Now, what would be really interesting on the Dow here, if I draw this zone right here, give it a couple more days, and then you get an intersection of this, in what, two or 3 days up here. That could be worth watching. Again, not a zone because it didn't take out the one to the left, but combination of those factors, then look on a smaller time frame, and you could potentially get something very, very useful right there. Again, because we're still in an overall downtrend, we want to look to keep getting short, and we don't have any areas to do so until this gap fills. And as much as I like, something like this 60-minute area right here, right? I mean, this looks nice, right? So you draw the, coming into the zone right here, but it's a counter trend trade. Now it's an index market, so it's not, it's not the end of the world to do a counter trend trade on an index market, but you just got to be very, very, very careful of doing them. Mark this one as something to watch. I may look down on like a 5-minute chart if price comes back down in here and see if I see any signs of reversal, and then maybe use that as additional confirmation to go ahead and take that. oil being the big one last night, right? You knew that was going to happen. We actually posted that one of our other channels last night. Forgot to post it in the trading one, but one of our other I said one of our other shows that we do. We talked a little bit about oil and how it was going to bounce up. That was because the one refinery in the Ukraine was bombed, and then of course the additional threats from Russia over the weekend as well just caused that very significant spike up. I think it ended up being almost an $7 spike in oil when oil opened last night. So again, you've got to be very careful of that gap area. All right. Price still seems to be going up, so we'll look to continue to take longs here. But again, you've got to get priced all the way down below that. And unfortunately, we've got a little bit of a trend change, here on the 60-minute chart. So it's not trend change, right? We've got a neutral trend now. So we actually could, some of the lower time frames, take a short right here. Let me just real quick go through this. Right, we had continuously going up, new highs, higher highs, higher lows, but then we've got this pivot down here, created a new low, and so we've got a sideways trend right now. So, given that, I can go down to a 15-minute chart and look for shorts then. And so you have the spike all the way up to here. Let me zoom in on this. All right, spike came all the way up to here. And if I look all the way to the left, so this is one where, you can't take these trades, right? Because this is completely a counter trend trade. And in a market like what happened last night, it wouldn't be good to you. But this zone right here, this technically is, a supply zone. And the price came right up into it perfectly, and then just started dropping back down from there. So I put this, mark this as use. So if I'm looking, up and left again, what I would be looking for more is get price to come down a little bit more, maybe another $1.50 or so, and then start looking for shorts in here. But you got to have a really good formation, and there just isn't anything there at all. We got a 5-minute real quick, just in case you see a better one here. Again, just looking because we've got that neutral trend on the 60-minute chart. We can look for shorts here, and if it's a good solid zone, then we might actually take it. And we are not showing anything. So we'll look at gold because we had a nice spike up in gold last night as well. Right, that one, I think we had like a $45 jump in gold from the close on Friday to the open on Sunday night. We've almost closed that gap too. So that's good. So we actually are starting to see additional zones moving back up now because the price did come so far down into it. And I'll just show you a couple of them here on a 60-minute chart where they're starting to form. Right, so you got these areas right here. But again, you need this other pivot to be taken out before you can actually use these. Right. So just marking them for now. Keep an eye on them. But it's a good sign that they're starting to create those pictures as price moves back up again. Okay. And then on a daily chart, we're spiking up through a bunch of stuff right here. So I've got to mark some of this stuff off on my tracking sheet before I get rid of it. But we're now, go ahead and move So I move my context marker here, probably to something like this now. And I mean, you could potentially see price come all the way up to the 2000 again. I guess it really does depend on what happens with the sanctions with Russia, right? If they really are forced into having to just buy gold to survive, they could drive the price up pretty far. Let's see if we got anything on a weekly chart that's showing us anything different at this point. And yeah, we've got no negative divergence at all here yet, and quite a ways to potentially go. So yeah, that actually could happen. All right, keep on going. Look at Japanese yen. Again, this one we are in, I think we're overall downtrend, right? And this one still, yep, a little bit of a spell. Not quite a sideways one, but it leans more towards sideways than just pure down at this point. We're still looking to take shorts though. And nothing in here really that's of interest. Natural gas. I did pull the second 240-minute zone that we had off of this one just because we had closed above the pivot high to the left coming off of the top one. But natural gas really does seem to be in the creating just a nice little white space right here, so we need to get outside of it. Honestly, you could almost call the zone lower a potential one here. Let's see what we got. So I pulled this one off already, the one that was right here. But you do have another one all the way down here. And if you look left, it's almost taken this one out. It's hard to really, I mean, those are pretty close, but you go completely left, you've got this point over here as well. So sort of, but man, it's clearing this white space really nice, so that is good. And it is, like I said, we are still in a move back up from the weekly zone here. I don't know. I'm going to watch this one for today, see what happens here. But this, we might look again. We'll take a look at this one again tomorrow. All right, so let's move on to Nikkei. So this was the one where we had our 45-minute. I'll show you this one here. So we had the 180-minute on this one again. That was another one of those break-even ones. And then we had the one on the 45-minute. Where price again, so this looks just like the dollar one did, right? Where price came right up into there on Friday and then just dropped like a rock. So honestly, for those of you that were in that trade, you actually made out quite a bit more, right? Because you were in the trade here overnight. Your stop limit would have triggered as soon as the price opened, but it opened all the way down here. So this was, another 2 times more profit for that trade. That's the benefit of how gaps work when they work in your favor. Obviously, if they don't work in your favor, then that's even an additional loss that you incur. But because of that, right, we've got to wait for that gap to close again before we take any additional shorts, unless something new is created from there. This one there's nothing. The only other thing we have is above this one. And that's quite a ways away. We still have this 240-minute zone here, although, yeah, I don't know. We'll probably end up having to pull this one because if price comes back up in here, it will mean it has more than likely changed trend. Excuse me. So we'll keep an eye on that as price comes up in here. We'll look as it crosses the 27,600 line. And again, see if we are getting that price change or the trend change there. Okay. Look at our bonds. So we had bonds spike up significantly at the open last night as well, which was 100% expected. And while they are still, let's see here, we are in we're still in the downtrend, right? So you can't, downtrend on the bigger picture, right? So on a daily, so 240 minute, you have to take shorts on. But let's see if we can, if we've shifted on our 60 minute yet. And we have, we have. So we can take longs on anything below a 60 minute at this point. So let's look at this one right here. And we've got what, in essence, because of this gap, you treat this like a full candle. You've got another picture perfect zone here, where you've got these couple of zones, a zone right at the gap, and then you've got the other one that's below here as well. Now these are taken out this pivot high over here, so you're definitely safe to get back in it. Although I would say chances are you're going to have probably a higher entry for this lower area here. But I'll watch that today, and then we'll take a look at this again tomorrow and see if we've got a better indication of where we should get into that trade at. Let's see if we've got anywhere else we're going to get in back short on this. Ooh, there just is not. All right, let's look at US. The 30-year bonds, and will be the same thing here. We did not have that same gap set up on the US, so we can't put anything in there. And yeah, nothing else is really jumping out at me on this one. Let me just check the daily and see where we're at overall. And there's no zones here to take advantage of either. So that's simple. Australian dollar. So we had this dive down a couple days ago, and I spent a little bit of time on this one last night looking at it, and I just cannot figure out what really drove this, right? Because if you look all the way over on this one, this was a very nice, very well protected zone here. I mean, this classic setup for it. The only thing that you had is you did have this dip right in here that came down and hit the top zone here. But the way this is set up, that should not have mattered that close to it. And so what ended up happening is you actually had price come down into this area here, which could be considered a zone. You know, it's not protected. So you go look left here, right? It's not protected. But that is actually, where price ended up moving up from. So it came right down into that area. So this one, when I document this in the tracker, it's a loss, and I'm not gonna overanalyze it, because sometimes things just don't work out the way that they're supposed to. But I wouldn't say that we didn't do anything wrong there. So not gonna really put like a lesson learned or anything like that. Continuing to look for long positions here. We've got to finish closing the gap here, which we will do shortly. Once we do that, some of these areas start becoming valid. So we've got this one right here, maybe this area right here as well. Let it come down into it a bit. But again, you've got to close above this line right here before you can start jumping back in on these. So we'll just leave them and watch them for now. Let's see here. Nothing else on AD. Let's look at British pound now. So British pound, we are still in the overall downtrend. Double checking our 60-minute. Yep, we're still down on everything. So only looking for shorts here. But and this gap that has already closed from last night. Get this back up. Go ahead and mark this one up here. Go up a little bit more into it. We've got a pretty good look left on this one. It's a good solid zone structure. We are in an overall downtrend. I'm going to mark this one up. And so we have British pound futures. Let's do this as a 30-minute short entry at 1.48. Stop is 1.3495. And target is 1.3415. Let's look at copper. So it looks like copper is coming up on its rollover. You can see the upper left-hand charts up there. They're starting to get a little bit spotty, so that means the contract volume is going down. So if you do take a trade, just make sure you're using the next month's over, even though this platform hasn't rolled over yet to it. So that means I'm honestly probably not even going to try it, and I'm going to mess with this. There is no reason to. Let's look at platinum. So just still overall uptrend on platinum as well, right? It does correlate with gold fairly well. Not quite as much, but pretty close. We'd be looking to take additional longs, and there's just nothing that I can see there. I'm going to jump over, look at some of our share bar charts now. So here's oil, and you've got that big gap, so you just got to be very careful about that. I did say we can take shorts on a smaller time frame now. So I'm actually looking at some of those, but I'm not seeing any good structures in here at all. No, definitely not. All right, so let's look at ES. Really can only do shorts here as well, right? There isn't. You might be able to do, I guess you could do a long on some of our shorter time frames, like down here in the 2,000 share bars. That would be fine. It's with the trend on this smaller time frame. Let's see here, but still got to have a good zone structure, and it just nothing is really showing up. And this one right here will give you another good idea of why price dropped from where it did. Right, we had drawn these areas out quite some time ago. Wasn't protected, so that's why we didn't use them. But as you can see here, right, these top two I mean, that is exactly where price dropped from, right? Came right up into this zone here and then just fell out overnight. So looks like today we literally only have one trade. We have that British pound one. We'll keep watching things on the share bar charts to see if there's anything else that does come up. If it does, we'll get that out, through Twitter or other social media channels. So keep an eye on those throughout the day just in case something else does come up. But I would say today's a good day to not to trade until something really solidifies and we get an area where we're very, very comfortable in. So with that, we'll go ahead and end for the day. If this was helpful for you, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll make sure that we get back to you as soon as possible. Have a happy and safe trading day today, and we'll see you all again tomorrow morning.